It probably doesn't come as a surprise to you that I get asked a lot of questions about Turo. And many of these questions are asked over and over again by different people who are wondering the exact same thing. And so because of this, every once in a while, I like to compile all of these questions together, and I like to make an FAQ style video where I basically address my currently frequently asked questions in one single video. And that is exactly what I want to do today. But before I dive into that, I do want to let you guys know that I do have a course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, that teaches you how to start and scale a car sharing fleet with the exact same business model that I use. We'll teach you how to buy cars, how to maintain them, how to communicate with your guests, how to streamline your operations and automate communications with your guests, as well as everything in between. When you buy the Car Sharing Masterclass, you also get access to our private Discord as well as our private Zoom calls as well. So if you're interested in checking this out, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's move on to our very first question. Why do some cars perform better than others, even if on the surface those two cars are the same? This is an excellent question, and it's something that is true. Person A and person B could have, in theory, the exact same car, but you may find that one of these cars is performing better than the other, and the question is why? Whenever it comes to the performance of a Turo car, it comes down to a lot more than just the car itself. The same make, model, year, trim, everything about a car, while important, aren't the end-all be-all factors to success on Turo. Of course, price is going to be a factor as well, but host availability is going to be a factor on top of that. So if you have two cars that are the exact same, they're priced the same, but they have different availability, the one that is available more is going to perform better. Let's say, for example, that car number A is available 95% of the time on Turo, while car number B is only available about 50% of the time. Car number A is going to begin to accumulate more trips. They're going to be more active on Turo. They're going to get more reviews. And because of that, even if at some point in time, both of these cars are available at the exact same price point, car number A is going to rank higher than car number B, because at that point in time, car number A would have developed a longer, more upstanding history on Turo. This is where things like your review, your trip counts, your availability all matter. For example, if you're a host and you only have one car, your car's been on a couple of trips, you're brand new to Turo, your car is going to rank lower than that exact same car owned by a host with 10,000 trips. That doesn't mean that you're not able to compete with this larger, more experienced host. It just means that you might have to tweak your settings a bit to make sure that you're able to compete. This is why if your car isn't getting booked out, you should look at more than just price, because while price is an important factor, it isn't the end-all be-all factor. Business has slowed down. What causes this type of slowdown? This is a question that I get asked often. This is particularly common after the summer season or after the holidays. So during the summer and during the holidays, there's typically a pretty big influx of renters using Turo because of the seasonality of the business. And once this seasonality has waned and people are going back to school, they're going back to work, travel has slowed down, Turo demand decreases, and Turo hosts, especially new ones, tend to panic. The reality is car sharing, like many businesses, are seasonal. And seasonality affects all sorts of businesses, not just ones that are in the hospitality industry. For example, I've talked a lot on this channel about how in addition to YouTube and Turo, I also work in corporate consulting as well. While July is an extremely busy month for Turo, it is an extremely dead month for my consulting job because people are on vacation, they're not working, and thus they're not hiring consultants. But then in August and September, my consulting job picks up a lot because people are going back to work, while on the flip side, things do tend to slow down a bit for Turo around that time because people aren't traveling and so they don't need a rental car. Seasonality affects nearly every business in different ways. It's just a matter of what type of seasonality your business experiences. If you are targeting people who are traveling on vacation, you're going to see an influx in renters around the holidays, around summer break, around spring break, things like that. But on the flip side, you're going to see a dip in August whenever kids return to school and parents are going back to work after summer vacation. This is just the nature of the game, and I wouldn't worry about it, but I would be prepared for it. This is where buying your cars at the right price, staying on top of utilization, and doing really whatever you need to do in order to get your car booked out becomes really important. Another great way to combat seasonality is to throw some of these low-end economy cars into your mix. Now, I know I am a bit biased here because the low-end to mid-tier economy model is basically my entire Turo business model, but I will say that whenever you have these types of cars and you're targeting local renters, you are much less impacted by seasonality in general. I don't see the ebbs and flows in my business model like many other hosts do who are targeting these travelers. In fact, August, which was a very slow month for many hosts around the country, was my best month ever. I will say though that with this business model, the one time of year that is significantly slower is in January after the holiday season. People are paying closer attention to their budget. They probably overspent during the Christmas season, and as a result, they don't want to pay money to rent a car. But other than that, my business model is pretty consistent. But with whatever business model you choose, whatever types of cars you're renting out, just come to terms with the fact that sometimes things are going to be a bit slower, and that's okay. You may need to lower prices, you may need to adjust your host settings, play around with it to make sure that your cars stay rented, but I definitely wouldn't worry. Should you report Turo damage to your insurance? I've been getting this question a lot lately, and I think it's incredibly important to address because this is something that you probably will run into at some point in time. And what this question is asking is if you have a guest who wrecks your car, should you report that damage to your insurance company? And the answer is no. Over the years, I have had dozens of cars. I have had so many accidents, many total losses, and I have never ever reported this damage to my insurance company, and I never will. The reason why you don't want to report this is because if you're a Turo host, you are probably going to be relying on Turo's protection packages for your insurance needs. Unless you have a third-party commercial insurance, then you may end up going that route, but in most cases, you're going to rely on Turo in some way, shape, or form. And if you file a claim with your insurance company, depending on what type of policy you have, you could run the risk of getting dropped. You could also run the risk of having your insurance costs go up, even though you weren't the one driving the car. Now, you can report it to the guest insurance company if they provide you with that information, or if it's a third party that hit you, you could also report it to their insurance company as well. It really all depends on the circumstances, but in, I would say, 99% of scenarios, you should not and will not need to report an accident to your own insurance company. This is why following the terms of service is incredibly important because you will want to rely on Turo if your car is damaged. How do I rent out older cars on Turo? This is hands down the most common question that I get asked. I get asked it on a daily basis, and there is a lot of misconceptions about the age of cars that you can have on Turo. A lot of people think that you have to have a car that is 10 years old or newer. There are a lot of people that think that you can rent out a car of any age. There's a lot of people that think that once your car reaches a certain maximum age, it gets taken off the platform, and many of these beliefs are untrue. Now, Turo has a policy that your car, whenever you list it out on Turo and it goes out on its first rental, it has to be 12 years old or newer and have 130,000 miles or less. As long as you rent a car that meets those guidelines, it can stay on the Turo platform as long as it's well maintained. This is how I'm able to have cars like a 2007 Ford Focus, 2007 Toyota Yaris, 2008 Ford Escape, as well as a slew of other cars in my fleet. If I was to buy a car today, even though I have 2007 year models in my fleet with well over 130,000 miles, that doesn't mean that I could add those same cars today. Today, I have to buy a car that is a 2011 or newer with 130,000 miles or less. On January 1st, 2024, that's going to be bumped up to a 2012 or newer, and so on and so forth. So if you're starting with Turo today, look for a 2011 at the bare minimum and find the car that has less than 130,000 miles. How does taking photos for your Turo fleet work, and how do I operate this process? Now, I've talked about this a lot on my channel, so I'm going to just kind of give a brief overview of how it works. Now, with Turo, you have to have photos showing the condition of the car 24 hours, no more than that, prior to the rental starts in order to have coverage. In fact, Turo says that I think it's like something like 30 to 40% of claims are denied by Turo because of insufficient photos. I think that photos are single-handedly the most important aspect of your car sharing fleet, and it's something that should not be overlooked. Photos are something that I put a huge emphasis on, and I always have, and I credit my photos to why I've never had a claim denied. So you have to take these photos within 24 hours of the start time. So what HP and I do is every single day we put eyes on our cars and we take fresh photos. We'll take a photo once a car has been returned in preparation for its next rental, but even if that car doesn't have a booking coming up next within the next 24 hours, we will still take photos of that car in case it gets rented out on a last-minute booking. This is something that I actually talked about in a relatively recent video, basically saying that in order to keep your car available 24/7 or nearly 24/7, you should always have photos in your phone of your cars that are no more than 24 hours old. Of course, you'll want to take these photos whenever you clean and check in the car after a rental, but you'll also want to take them on an ongoing basis if your car is just sitting as well. And the great thing is that once your car has been cleaned, the actual act of taking the photos shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes. We take photos of the entire exterior, interior of the car, basically every single inch of the vehicle, and then once the vehicle is returned, we'll simply do a visual inspection and we'll just take photos of what we need to take pictures of. If there is any existing damage, the odometer reading, the gas reading, those types of things. And by using this method, we've been able to have all of our claims approved. It allows for us to have every single inch of the car covered. It doesn't take a long time, and it also allows for our cars to be available virtually 24/7. Now, whenever it comes to storing these photos, we simply store them in our phone. I have an iPhone with like 500 gigabytes of storage, I think, which is plenty. HP has a Google phone and he has a Google Drive as well. So storage can definitely become an issue depending on how many cars you have, but it is something that can be mitigated pretty easily by having an external drive or just deleting your photos often. HP will typically go through his phone and delete the photos once every 30 days or so, once we know that there aren't going to be any issues that arise from that trip. But I definitely recommend keeping the photos for at least a couple of weeks. My motto is, I'd rather be safe than sorry. But in general, photos are super simple at Turo, and while you do have to do them often, and it is an important facet of the business model, isn't something that I would overthink. Make sure that you have 24 hours old or newer photos on your phone at all times, and if you do that, you'll be good to go. How do I store my cars? This is another one that I've been consistently asked over the years, and for me, I store my cars at a commercial retail center lot where I rent 4 spaces. Yeah, for my 27 cars, I only rent 4 spaces, and that is pretty much sufficient for my fleet. Every once in a while, if things are slow, we do have to store cars at our house, which is just down the road from where we store our cars, and we also store our camper van at our house as well. But for the most part, 4 spots for all of our cars is well enough for our fleet. The thing that people need to remember is that you're not looking for a place to store your cars, you are simply looking for a place to facilitate key exchanges. And if your cars are getting rented out consistently, you don't really need to store them because they're going to be in the possession of the guest. This is where I think that the storage component of a Turo business is one that people put far too much emphasis on. If your cars are getting rented out, you don't need to store them. And if they're getting rented out a lot, you don't even have to have the same number of spots as you do cars in order to facilitate these key exchanges. Prior to this retail center that we currently use, we actually used an office park, and I teach people all the time in my course to go reach out to local office parks, reach out to small businesses, and basically ask them, hey, can I rent a few spots from you? You'd be surprised at how many people will say yes. For us, we rent our spots out for $200 a month, which is a steal of a deal. Should you get a tracker? Now, this is something that I get asked quite often, and if you would have asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have said no, but this is one of those things that I was absolutely wrong on, and I have had a change of heart over the years. Now, previously, I wasn't a believer in trackers, especially for the low-end economy model, because whenever you get trackers for a lot of cars, it can be expensive, the monthly cost for those can be expensive, and my mindset in 2018 and 2019 was something along the lines of, I'm spending $2,500 on buying these cars. If I spend $2,500 to buy trackers for all of my cars, I could essentially buy an entirely new car, and it's just not worth the cost. But that was an incredibly naive outlook, and I absolutely was wrong, because in present day, I am a big believer of trackers. Now, I use One Step GPS for my cars. I do have an affiliate link down in the description below, but you can use really any tracking company. Bouncy is also a very good one. I like trackers for a handful of different reasons. Number one, it allows for you to see where your cars are. Now, I encourage all Turo hosts to not check in on their cars often because I think for your own mental health, you should keep an arm's length away of cars while they're actively being rented out. For example, as I'm recording this video, we have a car that's due back in 1 hour, and it is approximately 10 hours away in a different state. So by looking at the tracker, we know that we shouldn't expect to see this car anytime soon, and this guest will more than likely be extending. This way we can plan our day accordingly, which is a huge help. But of course, if you have a car that's missing, that's where a tracker can also come in handy. Occasionally, you do have scenarios where your car may get stolen, it may not be returned, at which point knowing where your car is a lifesaver. Now, even if you don't have a tracker and your car gets stolen or isn't returned, you can still get your car retrieved by Turo. In fact, that has happened to us many times over the years, but a tracker makes the job much, much easier. And of course, the ability to just see that your car has been returned. Whenever it's time for a car to be returned, it can oftentimes be a task of, okay, when should you head down to the lot to go clean it? Should you give the guest enough time to return it? You don't want to go down there and waste your time. So being able to look at your phone and say, okay, this car has been returned, now I can go pick it up. It's a great plus. Trackers are an excellent tool for any car sharing fleet, and because of that, I think it is a worthwhile investment. But there you guys have it, some of the most updated frequently asked questions that I get asked on a daily basis. If you have any additional questions that I didn't address in this video, leave a comment down below because I would love to hear it. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.